I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Middlebury Development Review Board for August 28th, 2017. I would like to remind anybody that is going to give testimony to please sign in. What I'll do is I'll go over our business for tonight. First item of business is an application by Marble Works Partnership and William Smith for conditional use review of a PUD amendment to operate a coffee manufacturing business in the Marble Works complex. The property is located at 137 Maples Street, parcel ID 24122, and is located in the VRC zoning district. Second application, an application by Rollison Properties for a final plat review of a two-lot subdivision. The property is on Foot Street, parcel ID 08160, and is located in the HDR zoning district. The third application, an application by Tractor Supply and Rollison Properties for a conceptual conditional use review to construct an approximately 19,100 square foot retail store. The property is located on Foot Street, parcel ID 08160, and is located in the PhD zoning district. Now, is there any other business to come before the board other than what's on the agenda? Alrighty. First order of business is approval of last meeting's minutes.
Are there two sets of minutes?
Just one.
Yeah, July,
The set
The
from
seventh.
August 14th, the other ones are to support the,
Oh, it's
to
just.
remind us what we decided
Gotcha.
before.
On
Thank you.
the Rollison application
Got it.
first.
A little approval of the minutes. Oh,
Have a second?
Second.
Diane?
I have a note on them.
I'm sorry?
I have a note. I think the second to adjourn the meeting couldn't have been by Don. I don't think he was here.
no, he wasn't.
Don was not here.
Yeah, line 63. Must have misattributed the second. I'm happy to take the blame.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So all in favor of the last meeting minutes with the change, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So the first application is by William Smith for a PUD amendment.
Rick,
Yes.
gotta approve the agenda.
I'm sorry?
Gotta approve the agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay. Have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Right, please. Yeah. So, but I have an oath here that I would like you to respond to, please. I affirm that the evidence and information I am giving in this proceeding is true and accurate to the best of my knowledge and belief. And that's for all that are going to give testimony
Sure.
in this
Sure.
particular application, please.
Okay, yes, I agree.
So-
And Rick, I'm a little bit hard of hearing, so maybe you could pull your mic a little closer.
Doesn't broadcast.
Oh, it doesn't work that way? Okay, all right. I'll turn my hearing aid up. That sometimes works.
That's for the tape.
Yeah, it's for the TV, so, go ahead, Bud, tell us what you're proposing here.
So Jill Madden and I own Bud's Beans. It's been located at 113 South Main Street for 17 years. It's been operating as a home occupation. The gross sales are about $70,000 a year, and I'm saying that because I want you to notice the scale of the operation And so you can refer back to that maybe when you have other questions that come down the line. But it's a very small operation. It has low overhead, and it requires fairly low overhead to keep going. But it's well received in the town of Middlebury. We probably 90% of the business of that volume is right here in Middlebury at the Bagel Bakery, at the Co-op, at Carol's Hungry Mind, at Otter Creek Bakery, at Schaefer's Market, and people walk in and grab a pound now and then from us. From there, we sell one place in Vergennes, one place in Brandon, one place in Bristol that comes and picks up the coffee. We roast anywhere from 150 to 250 pounds a week right now. That takes a total of about 7 to 8 hours of roasting. So those are the hours that we work. This morning, we had a heavy day. It was busy. I started roasting at 8:30 and 1:30, 1 o'clock? We were finished at 1 o'clock. And that's a heavy day. And we'll roast, and I'll deliver tomorrow the coffee that I roasted today. Wednesday, we don't work. Thursday, another half day of roasting. Friday, deliver. And that's pretty much the business. The roaster that we use holds 5 3/4 pounds. We have to do, in order to get 18 pounds an hour out of it, we have to do 4 roasts an hour. From that 5 3/4 pounds, we lose 20%. So we have about 4 3/4 pounds to sell. So I'm trying to show you the scale of the business. And the business plan that we have doesn't allow us to grow very much. It's a specialty thing. We buy high, expensive coffee, takes longer to roast it, tiny little batches, and it's successful because of that. So it's really only good for somebody that's doing something for a few hours a week and not a huge business. We don't have any traffic to speak of. Now and then, somebody comes in to buy a pound of coffee. Most of them are neighbors that walk over, but some aren't. Probably not more than 10 or 15 pounds a week. Probably that would be the maximum. If somebody from Bristol, chocolates, who we sell for, will come down and buy 25 pounds every couple or 3 weeks. Corey Foote will come down from Vergennes from his store, buy 25 or 30 pounds every 2 weeks. Woods Market will come up and buy 5 or 10 pounds a week. That's the business. We need to comply with state regulations, and we need a space that's a little bit bigger than we are. We've operated for 17 years in a space that's 9 feet by 14 feet. It's getting crowded, but it doesn't take a lot of space. And the space at the Marble Works that we're looking at is 20 by 30, that's 600 square feet. We'll be able to come into compliance with the state health regulations and have room to store the coffee there. We have had no truck deliveries to my business for the last couple of years. It goes down to Bordeaux Brothers because they have a forklift. We get 1 pallet of coffee every 4 to 6 weeks.
How many?
A pallet of coffee, and a pallet of coffee is about 9 bags, and 9 bags weigh about 1,400 pounds. So we get about 1,400 pounds every 5 or 6 weeks. I can't think of much else that I can tell you to show you the scale of it. There is smoke that comes when we roast, and this would be the things. Traffic is not going to be an issue with us as far as I can tell. I think that the only big issue would be noise, and we have no noise. You can't hear it outside of our room. Smoke is an issue, but I think, did you get any letters from our neighbors, Jennifer? And I didn't ask them to tell me what they thought. I asked them to fill out a form and send it to you. Our neighbors, I think, love us. We just aren't getting complaints. They like us. We do what we can do for them. And the roasting machine, while it's roasting for 4 hours a day, say, for 2 days, 3 days, if we have a heavy month, will smoke for 5 minutes of a 13-minute cycle. So every 13 to 15 minutes, there's smoke coming out of the chimney, and it lasts for about 5 minutes. And then that's when the temperature gets up around 400 degrees. And that's just the last part of the roast. I'm ready for questions if anybody's got any.
So, when we were talking about these things in my office, the other piece of the puzzle was talking to the potential new owners and seeing how they might be running a different business then, but in the future, like, would it be bigger or anything like that? So, so they've put together a little narrative that I included in your packets.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you would like to also hear from them. Not Leah Keller is here tonight, I see in the back row. I'm sure she'd be happy to answer any questions you have about her memo or expound upon anything.
I have a question for Jen.
Ann?
Do you know whether there are any other food manufacturing businesses within this planned unit development already?
I couldn't hear you.
Ann wants to know if there's any other food manufacturing businesses in the Marble Works.
There's other food processing businesses down there. Bud's Bean is really food processing, not manufacturing. If you look at the process of these other food processing businesses down there, it's obviously much more involved in processing and manufacturing than this particular business. But Stoneleaf Tea House would be one that is getting bulk tea and doing some trimming and processing of that product for retail sale and for use and sale in the business. American Flatbread, if you want to get right down to it, they're buying 50-pound bags of onions and they're cutting them and caramelizing them.
But
So
that's
they're-
classed as a restaurant, not food manufacturing.
It's food processing. It's of the same. Bud's buying food and he's processing it and he's selling it. So he's not manufacturing anything there. So I would look at as a close comparison. I would say Stoneleaf Tea House, American Flatbread, when it was packaging and processing and shipping frozen pizzas from that location, which they're no longer doing. That was definitely some food manufacturing that was happening at that time.
You used to have a coffee house, right, Ryan?
Never a coffee house. The
No?
tea house is essentially a coffee house.
Vermont Coffee, I thought used to be there.
They had just a business office for sure.
Okay.
Does he need to be sworn
Ryan, you want to identify yourself,
Oh, I'm
please?
sorry. I'm Ryan Emilio. I'm the operations manager of the Marble Works.
And next to him
This is Kim
is
Smith, who's one of the general partners.
of the Marble Works. So,
Rick did administer the oath to everyone.
everyone that was giving testimony in this case, that was
in? Okay.
that was part of the process.
Does that answer your question in terms of the other food processing that's happening?
Yes.
Hey, Rick, can I ask a question?
Yes.
What defines manufacturing?
Yeah, so I'm gonna,
Okay, so
I'm
I'm gonna
gonna not
defer
answer
to-
that question by saying I'm not sure how that's all relevant. It could be pogo stick making you know, under PUD, you can allow all these different kinds of uses if the board decides that the repercussions of those uses aren't bad. So I kind of would suggest that that's what we talk about more than if there's precedence or what
Well,
manufacturing means.
the reason I brought up that question was because the PUD has to be consistent with the town plan. And the town plan doesn't foresee this type of operation in the Marble Works as far as I can see. It has retail, restaurants and offices.
Would it make sense, I mean, I'm reading what was sent to Jennifer by Leah Keller. Would it make sense to get some narrative from Leah as to what, if she's gonna take over the business, what her thoughts may be?
Leah will be taking over the business if everything, if we get permission to operate there. And there are a couple of other ifs, but it will either be me or Leah who's going to be running it if it's there. And Leah can tell you what her plans are, and
Would you like to hear from Leah?
might be,
Yeah, it might be helpful.
Yeah.
That's
Leah,
helpful.
could
I
you-
would think
If
it
that's
would be.
okay.
Or there's another chair there that she can bring up. Those are, yeah. Can you just identify yourself for the record, please, Leah?
My name is Leah Keller.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm interested in buying Bud's beans. A lot of what I find interesting in the business, besides roasting coffee, is the small size. I've worked full-time at a stressful job. I get a small pension. I don't need to make a whole lot of money. It's something to do part-time, a little added income. I'm not looking at growing into a business. That doesn't interest me at all. I like the size and the scale that Bud's Beans is at this point. It would need, I think, to grow a little bit, because right now, being a home-based business, it doesn't have the added overhead of paying rent per facility. So it does need to cover expenses. But, you know, I'm not looking at, and couldn't compete with someplace like Vermont Coffee. That's not in the plan. It wouldn't be a good plan. It would continue to be a very small, part-time business, roasting coffee 2 days a week, maybe 3 if necessary.
You have no plans at this point to, say, grow a client base of, well, a coffee shop, people coming in and dropping in, and you're selling cups of coffee to them?
Not selling cups of coffee.
Okay.
Certainly if people wanted to come in and buy bags of coffee,
Mhm.
That would be fine. If they wanted to sample coffee,
Mhm.
I could see doing that. You know, give them a taste of brewed coffee. But operating a coffee shop, I think, would be more time and more energy than I'm necessarily interested in.
Any questions for?
I only have one.
Yes, please, John.
Did you have a question? I'm sorry.
No.
Okay. I was looking through the narrative, scanning for general hours of operation. You think any earlier than 8:30? Would you be roasting in the wee hours or anything like that?
Bud's a morning person, I'm not, so.
Either mine.
we
So,
still don't get started roasting before 8:30. Because I have to go take orders, and then we come back and we line up the way it's gonna be roasted. And if we get started at 8:30, we think it's a little early. We think it's fine.
So if we got talking later in deliberation and we're thinking of capping the hours at, I don't know, like 8 to 6 or something like that. Would that fit with your vision of?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
sounds
that
good.
would-
So to be clear, Bud's proposing, what he's proposing for Bud's Beans in the Marble Works partnership, but what we're looking at overall is a PUD amendment, correct?
Yep. The power of a PUD is that you can allow uses that weren't otherwise there, or that were not even listed in the table of uses. And so maybe this is something that's not even listed. So it's this flexibility in the regulations to allow things that we didn't anticipate.
Hmm.
And your schedule might be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, you know, just 3 days during the week. You're not gonna have a set schedule.
My plan would be to keep it basically the way it operates now. So roasting on Monday and Thursday, and deliveries on Tuesday and Friday. I think even now, with the business, if they have large orders, for whatever reason, they will roast on days other than Monday and Thursday. So some flexibility in terms of days is helpful. Holidays, inclement weather, things like that, you know, I could tell you I'm gonna roast Monday and Thursday, but
Probably not on weekends,
no, not on weekends.
Monday through Friday, basically.
Monday through Friday, within that range, yeah.
Any further questions from the board members? Do we have any audience members that wish to comment?
I live on Willard Street,
Yes.
and the door that enters, the parking, the cars will have mainly probably be using Willard Street. Gets a little congested right now with the dog groomer. So there is gonna be some traffic. And people I don't know won't be going around, they'll be in and out there. And also, where's the smokestack going to go? And what is the?
It would be through the roof. It would be vented through the roof in the front of the building. You heard how much smoke it would produce. Laura's wood stove produces more smoke in an hour than that's going to produce in a week. In terms of parking on Willard Street, just from some conversations we've had over a year, it's been a real issue. That's a town street. You wouldn't know what way it's maintained, but it's a town street, and there's no parking on that street. And there's been conversations with the police chief to have some sort of enforcement there, but the parking in back across from your house is obviously parking, but they may have to stage on the street to unload things, but they need to park in the Marlboro's parking lot. We don't permit anybody to park
I know, but
anywhere
it's-
outside of where our designated parking is.
Sometimes the dog room, they park right in front.
Sure, yeah.
And that's, you gotta turn around a lot.
Right. This back and forth is a little dangerous. So far, so good,
Yeah,
but
you should be addressing the board.
just in case it gets more contentious, you never know.
Yeah, that's,
You guys are pretty
Oh,
tame.
with Diane, I don't think so.
Okay, good.
I'm just, the.
Oh, that's true. You probably do know each other. Okay, all right.
The road does get.
I'm a good neighbor.
The road does get, it's 3 small houses, and the road does get, there's some congestion there with the dog groomer, so you think about another business where the entry is right on that corner, it's gonna, be more so.
But I don't know if it would help or not, but where we're roasting now is in back of an apartment house that Jill Madden owns, my partner. It's a little narrow driveway, and sometimes there are 7 or 8 cars belonging to the apartment dwellers there. We have almost no, at this point, we have almost, in our history, we have almost zero traffic. We have, if we get 3 or 4 or 5 cars a week, that's pretty typical.
And the other question was the smokestack, what is coffee roasting actually, what is the smell? It probably didn't smell like coffee,
she's asking, go ahead.
what is the actual aroma? It's not like coffee.
Smells like burned toast.
Oh, okay.
To me,
Okay.
my wife says I don't have a good nose, but
Okay.
it smells like, to me, it smells like burned toast.
And your neighbors, I guess you have some notes that say they haven't minded.
Our neighbors really like us, and there should be letters here. I sent out a questionnaire to neighbors, and I think some of them came back to the town.
They've all gone to the DRB members.
Yes, we all have copies of them, so,
You do?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
and they were all in the affirmative. There was,
Okay.
no one had any issues.
Okay, I didn't see any of
I
them,
guess
so
the
I just,
concern was the smokestack would be on the side of the building,
I
and
think
that it would just waft over to my house.
it would, yeah. Leah would tell you where she's planning on putting it.
Right, it would be out through the roof, as
Okay.
far from Willard Street as we can get it.
Okay,
I can't account for downdrafts, but
right, right,
the,
okay,
the hope is to get it up and away so it's not a nuisance.
okay.
Just so I understand, board understands, is the entrance to this space on the north end of the Kubota building, or is it on the west, northwest
It's on
end?
the west.
On the west,
If your back is to the Addison Independent.
yes.
And you're looking straight across the
Yeah.
Kubota building, which is 63 Maple Street, you guys have it as 137. So just to clarify that, it is the space on the far north, on the left side, as you're facing, so the
Okay.
northwest corner. And the pedestrian access to that space is from, can I, Jennifer, can I point out?
Please, yeah.
Yeah. Just stand off to the side so that.
So, okay,
Yep.
so here's the Kubota building.
Yes.
Here's Willard Street.
Yes,
The pedestrian access is off of Maple Street this way, and this from here on is all private, so the town responsibility stops here. So pedestrian access is either here from Maple Street or here from the small parking lot on Maple Street.
okay,
People using Willard Street that way, it's never been a use that it's not part of the Marble Works or part of any parking that's promised to anybody.
okay.
So that's the area, and that's the pedestrian access.
Now, there is a door on the north side. I think it's just a blank door.
There's an emergency exit, which is also an ADA access to the common hallway.
Okay,
of the Kubota
that
building.
makes
There's a
sense.
lot of offices on the interior of this building.
Yes.
And then there is a door that enters the dog groomer from Willard Street as well.
Yes, but that's more east, right, more,
It's sort of between that center door, Rick, and the west side. of the
okay,
building.
okay. The parking on the east side of the Kubota building between the stone house and,
Back in here.
yes, right in there. Does that belong to the Marble Works
It is,
partnership?
we own and maintain that, and typically, by the time the two ladies get there that work for the dog groomer, and then the individual that rents this building, it's full.
Okay, so,
It's 4 or 5 cars in there.
okay.
So the parking calculation here would be a requirement of 4 spaces. Can you
Oh,
provide 4
No
spaces?
problem. Absolutely. And our parking's all common parking at the Marble Works. You don't get an assigned seat up front, Leah, sorry. You have to walk from wherever your space is.
Well.
No deal.
All right, any further questions? Gary?
How high is the stack gonna be?
It's a good question. I don't know how high it needs to be. I don't know that how high, Bud, do you think that stack needs to be?
It doesn't need to be more than a few feet above the roof. It needs to get, just to not be close to the roof is the big thing. So I guess.
There's existing vents that are about 4 to 5 feet that are coming out of that flat part of that roof currently. There's half a dozen of them along this front flat part. There's also air conditioning units up on that roof that will be just as high or higher than this vent stack.
Do you have a feel for what would be ideal?
It's a powered vent, so it's not drafting the way a wood stove does, so it doesn't have to be
Okay.
high. It's, you know, there's not
Yes.
some distance just to get a good draft.
But it's a combustion product, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's smoke.
Yeah.
So the fire code answer would be 2 feet above any roof surface within 10 horizontal feet of where the pipe comes out. I think it's a really good question.
Such as the ridge.
Yeah, if it's within 10 feet. If it's a very gradual
Mhm.
slope, it might not be.
Yeah, it won't be. Within 10 feet of the slope roof,
Yeah.
we'll be well away from that.
So that's the fire code, but you're probably gonna wanna, for operational reasons, consider higher, and we may want to require it higher for neighborhood reasons. I'm sorry, you asked me not to mumble, you asked us not to mumble, and I mumbled away. I was just saying, I think it is a good question, and it may be a condition that we wanna consider, is that the stack might
Sure.
need to be higher than
Sure.
fire code.
Well, and there's a couple of regulations that we have to follow as well, that Files Brothers will have to follow with installing it, and also there will be a state construction permit with the fire marshal's office as well.
Yeah.
Any further questions?
Last one.
Go ahead, Jen.
Just while I got you there, are there any other 600 square foot spaces in the Marble Works that are further away from?
There's not.
Okay,
Yeah. No, that's the only one.
okay.
I have one, I think I understand this, but this is not replacing Doggone Styles. This is in addition to Doggone Styles. Okay.
Another,
I just
Go-
have
sure.
clarifications. I'm Laura Marsh. I live on 5 Willard, which is on the corner of Maple and
Mm-hmm.
Willard Street. But, so just to understand again with the smokestack, it's going to be as far away from that Willard Street side as you can possibly get it? And is there going to be a limit made when this is all said and done to the poundage of coffee that you can roast per week? I kind of read somewhere
Yeah, we
that
could-
there'd be a limit of some sort.
Well, we
so
could
that-
put a conditional use on it
Okay,
then.
so
Yeah.
that there couldn't be a huge jump suddenly in the business without at least notifying everyone that there's
Right.
going to be an increase.
Or probably coming back to the board if there was a need. Well,
Yeah, in her narrative, Leah gave us a sort of an upper threshold of where she thought she might grow to before we would be able to re-review that. And, so
And
that's
if we're
still
from a
here.
landlord, I'd probably say, Leah, sorry, you're getting too, I mean, this is a small space and we're not looking for a large operation like that on the property.
pleasure of the board? You wanna-
I want to announce that I'm going to recuse myself. I have a long-term relationship with Laura Marsh,
Hmm?
and I'm a good friend of Bud's, and I like their coffee, and I buy it.
If you want to deliberate about this a little bit, I think we're probably going to use a deliberation for the next 2 applications, so that's an option.
Yeah, is that,
I move to close the public hearing and reconvene on this topic in deliberative session after we've heard the other applications.
I'll second that.
so move? Any further discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so what that means is, after we've heard the other applications, we're gonna go into deliberative session.
Okay.
And that's, no one else can, just the board
Sure.
is allowed
Sure.
in there. And you're welcome to hang around, or Jennifer can let you know in the morning, or you can stop by and ask her what the result may or may not be.
Thank you all.
Okay? Yes,
All right.
Kim?
Thank
If
you.
we're not happy with the decision, is there any appeal process?
Yes?
Mhm.
Yes?
Yes.
Yep.
Who's the appeal to?
Environmental court. You'll have 30 days to appeal the decision to environmental court.
And is the Marble Works requesting change to the PUD?
PUD amendment, yeah.
Because,
Because this is being classified as manufacturing.
okay.
Thank you.
All right, Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Bud. Okay.
Did everyone sign in the sheet that wants to? Did you sign the sheet? What's
Yes,
your last
Diane,
name, Diane? Curran. With a K or a C? Okay, perfect.
Is this,
What's that?
Do you want me to, is it,
Don't jump the gun,
Yeah.
yeah.
you want me to wait?
High-density residential, yeah.
I think that's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Should I
And
get a
printed
point of
some off.
clarification
Are they the
on
ones you emailed the other day? Oh, these are nicer copies. Okay, I'll distribute these.
Yeah.
I don't know whether.
Yeah, let's alert Rick to correcting that. Okay.
Yeah,
I just want to confirm with you.
Thanks, Scott.
That is PhD.
yeah.
If they screw that up, they'll find out.
I was trying to be MVP here tonight.
Oh, we have these.
Yeah,
I
we
know,
have.
but it makes sense that I took them off and brought them on airplane and stuff, so we're just gonna pass them over.
So we're doing the subdivisions first?
Yes, yes. So our second order of business is an application by Rollison Properties for final plat review of a two-lot subdivision on Foot Street.
Thank you.
Duncan, would you please? And the oath, again, I affirm that the evidence and information I'm giving in this proceeding is true and accurate to the best of my knowledge and belief.
I do.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So just following up on the last hearing, where I brought a sketch plan, took feedback from you and from Jen,
Yeah, thanks.
and now have a revised subdivision. Is that something we're able to pull up on the screen, Jen? Is that how I should reference it? Not trying to rush you. Not trying to rush you, I'm sorry.
These are all,
Always trying to jump the gun, you're right.
that work for you, you know? I was done anyway. Let's get this over here.
Just sort of top line changes. I think you all probably saw the sketch plan determination feedback from, and obviously some of that came from you, but gave some more detail to both a 3-lot subdivision and a boundary line adjustment. So a boundary line adjustment to account for the expansion of the Knops Metalworks property. You'll see the right-of-way to the north of the proposed Lot 1 to give access to both Lot 2, Lot 2 and 3, and then also rear access to the proposed Lot 1 subdivision. Detailed, again, based on conversation with Jen, the timeline of the wetland delineation on here, setbacks, access, easements, things of that nature that weren't in the initial sketch plan, building envelopes for both 3 lots, a conveyance of some land to the town for the potential of a sidewalk along Foot Street if required by the state. I think those are the top line sort of changes, and the greater detail we'll see here. I think there's also another document that Jen has that shows some trees along the northern border of the right-of-way, in between the right-of-way and the northern property line. So that's the right-of-way off of Foot Street that would provide access both to the additional 2 lots, but also to the rear of the proposed Lot 1.
Questions? Ann? please.
In the decision that Jennifer sent out in July, she asked for legal documentation of any proposed easements. Presumably, you're granting one of those to Tractor Supply Company.
Correct.
We don't have the documentation for that, and maybe we don't care, but I'd like to establish that that's something you will be discussing
Definitely.
with them.
Yep, certainly.
And then what about water and sewer for Lot 1? Is that,
Something that we have, I think, plans for. I don't know if that might come up more in the conditional use, but I could also defer to Brent Rakowski here from an engineer's perspective on the ability to tap into water and sewer. I think both of them are there on Foot Street.
it just seems to me that if you don't have a permit for that or something on paper saying that the water and sewer is available, that you're taking a risk in creating a subdivision which you might never be able to get rid of because it doesn't have water and sewer. That was my only thought.
Okay.
What do you think you might want in terms of documentation?
Well, I don't particularly, but it was one of the things we had asked for.
All right, so is there anything else in the letter that I wrote that doesn't look like it got met? Because we've had a lot of conversations since then, and maybe I've backed off on something that.
And I think it was engineer's opinion as well. I mean, I think we have plans certainly to go, down the road and make sure we have that feedback. But
Okay.
I guess, I guess I wasn't feeling that was something that I wanted to enforce or mention in the staff memo, just because there have been conversations with Public Works, and that's in progress. I was worried about
Okay.
that sewer line extension, but we've talked about that a little since then, and apparently the sewer line ends somewhere, I'm totally taking your job right now, and somewhere around G-Stone. So it's not as far down Foot Street as I had originally thought, and it doesn't sound like it's a big headache at all for Dan to extend it over toward them.
So if I can pipe in for a second.
Please.
So my understanding of it is that the service that would feed, and we're probably getting off topic here, but would feed Lot 1, that is entirely on Lot 1. So it wouldn't necessarily be owned by the town, owned or operated by the town. It would only be the section that crosses the road over to the manhole at G-Stones.
You're saying that the town wouldn't own the lateral?
They wouldn't own they wouldn't, in my opinion, they wouldn't own the portion that is along and on Lot 1.
The town would or would not?
Would not.
And the portion that's on Lot 1, does it cross Foot Street from the entrance of G-Stone Commercial over to Lot 1, and then it runs up Lot 1 the whole way?
Yes.
Uh-huh. All right, well,
I'm sorry.
I guess you're reinforcing
If Dan would
Ann's,
like to take it over.
I guess
by
you're
all
reinforcing
means.
Ann's concerns, so I guess I'll just let you guys
I'm
dig
sorry,
that
we've
out.
got a giant plan up, and we're doing this with verbal description. Could you point to what you're talking about, the connection? Or,
There's actually this is the future access drive.
uh-huh,
There's an existing access to G-Stone Motors, which is somewhere in this area.
What can I show you that's better, the civil plans?
The
The civil?
yeah, the civil plan. So let's see, but I think the axis is down.
I'm gonna go one more, and then I'm gonna move it. There it is. Is that the end
Yeah,
of it?
right there. So that's in the middle, that's the access road to the Gardner Stones, the G-Stone Motors,
Okay, is commercial division.
commercial division, yeah.
So the idea with serving this lot is a sewer crossing of Foot Street that then runs on lot. So if you were to go to the utility plants on there, or it comes out there.
And so when I wrote the preliminary determination based on our conversation and deliberation, I had said for Lot 1 that there should be some sort of written, some sort of documentation that water and sewer can be provided, and that's what Ann's referring to here. And I didn't really specify what that documentation should be. I said it may be an engineer's opinion, which I think we kind of just got an engineer's opinion that it's doable.
Yeah.
Or an allocation letter, but I was really ahead of myself. You're not ready for allocation yet.
I'm not opposed to the subdivision, I just want to make sure that
Sure.
you're not somehow left high and dry with this. That we help you create it and then you can't do anything.
Sure. Oh,
You come
understood.
back to us to fix it.
Understood.
So that's the sewer, where's the water on this particular lot?
You can see that little W along there from where you are.
Okay. Is it on the east side or west side of the Foot Street, the water? Does it follow
On
the,
your side here.
yeah, west side, okay. Yeah, I see, okay.
I'd call that east or south.
Hmm?
I'd call that east or south.
It's on the G-Stone commercial
on the
side.
G-Stone
Yep,
side.
okay, yeah. All right, so basically the water and the sewer side by side down that, down Foot Street,
Yeah,
going north and south on that. Yep, yep.
not optimal, right? I assume they're separated enough.
Yeah, that's right.
They're not gonna drink the water there anyway.
Let's hope.
Looking at the gas line right there, too.
Yeah. And so, just to clarify that point that David was asking about, Brent, you're gonna, cross over here,
Yep,
and then you're gonna run the sewer up the correct side, on the opposite side of the road.
correct, but it will be on lot 1.
Mm-hmm.
Within the list.
And it'll be owned by Tractor Supply. That's interesting. Will it be big enough for the town to take that over if the town ever wanted to extend the sewer line on that side of the road?
And what about what about Lot 2 and Lot 3 in the future? They will need water and sewer.
So lot, see if I can find, so lot 3, there's an easement across what is currently the Knops Metalworks
Okay.
property. So the proposal would be for sewer and water to be accessed across that property. And then for lot 2, that sewer and water would be accessed from the proposed right-of-way to the north of lot 1.
Can we point to that?
Sure. That would be through this area here.
And then lot 3 also comes up then?
Lot 3 would come down through this easement. There's an existing easement right here.
Mhm.
So maybe, I don't know if this needs to be extended then, I guess, to give that clarity across the back of that property line.
Is that why there's only trees on one side of the access right of way?
For this here, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
to leave space for that to come down without disrupting. And I think that ultimately, the buffer being between, we talked about this maybe in the DAC feedback meeting, but the buffer being between sort of a commercial and a residential district, and that this provides that sort of more dense tree line in between the commercial and residential areas.
Yeah.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, Frank has something too. if that's
Please,
okay, Rick.
identify yourself.
Hey, folks, I'm Frank Alexander. I'm the Tractor Supply developer. I'm with Primex Property, so we're kind of cross-pollinating
Yeah.
Duncan and me, and I apologize, but maybe it'll help a little bit. And I probably should have gotten it to you sooner, but I will get an easement draft to Duncan to provide to the town. We've done this many times where we've gone into subdivided multi-lot properties. Quite often, we're the first guys through the door. So we can create an easement or have an easement document pretty much ready to go. the point I want to make is within that easement document, we're talking about access. It also will provide in that right-of-way, your right-of-way, but with your agreement, it will provide for utility extensions to run along that, and it's sized to meet, what's your standard, the W whatever, A76 or something. The right-of-way meets the town standards to have room also to run utilities if they need to come around the back way. So I guess what you're saying, not to steal your thunder,
No,
is you
go
can bring utilities up from Route 7, you can bring them behind us off Foot Street. I will get that document to him to get to you, but I think that it's provided to bring utilities in from two different directions. The taps that are crossing the street here we're pointing to are really just to serve Tractor Supply. No different than if you were building a house and need to put a water line into your house. These are the taps that we're working out with the Public Works to provide us service. We'll have, I'm getting way off topic here, but there'll be a fire line because it's fully sprinkler buildings. There'll be a tap for that, and then also a domestic water line, and then also the sewer. And all that's accessible through Foot Street. And I'll get out of the way and wait my turn. Thank you.
That's helpful.
Thanks, Frank.
Anything else on the hit list there? No? Okay.
Duncan, on the proposed Lot 1, you're going to have an access, well, the main access to that lot. We understand where that is, and so I understand, is the second one going to be along that right of way? So that you can, any deliveries, whatever, is it gonna come through the right of way, or will it,
So,
please?
and maybe we'll probably get into more detail on this in the conditional use permit application,
Yeah.
but the right-of-way comes into here, I
Yeah.
think somewhere in this area would be where it would be stubbed off for the time being until and if there was future development.
Yeah.
But that, I think you can see this right here.
Yes.
This sort of access would be where that rear delivery for Tractor Supply would come in and would allow for primarily truck deliveries. I think, again, Frank can probably speak to that, but
That's
maybe
okay.
one a
I
week
just-
as far as truck traffic that would come in along that route.
Okay.
And then the primary, consumer shopper
Right,
area access would be from Foot Street down here.
yes, okay. So, I think we talked about access and deliveries when Duncan first brought this to the board, whatever, so
Yeah, I think one thing, it is dangerous to kind of go between these two packets, although the civil drawing is showing us things that we all clearly are curious about. This issue came to my mind because on the civil drawing, which is drawn from the perspective of Tractor Supply, it says future road by others on that northern easement. But the plan here is that the first parcel is developed and that right-of-way is built along the north side, correct?
Correct.
It's a matter of point of view of who's commissioning these drawings.
yeah. Any further questions from the board? Jen?
So I had one question today, and I forgot to call Derek and ask him, but when I look on the Tractor Supply plans, there's like a stormwater pipe that comes off on lot, what is this, lot 3? And like it goes off-site. Yeah, and I just wondered if there needs to be an easement for that, maybe.
I think we've tried to do everything we could to keep it all contained on, that's
Probably
certainly
where
the
it
goal.
daylights,
but-
right? And then we probably would, you're right, we probably would need these within. If it's gonna trickle on to the rest of your land, we'll need a drainage easement from you for that.
So I'll just mention that, because all those easements need to be shown on the final plat.
Sure.
And I kind of think, well, I'm going to maybe recommend to you, I don't know if you'll do deliberation on this or not, but I think if you do approve this, you might want to approve it so that we could make a couple final tweaks to clean it up, and then the DRB chair could sign off on it and approve
Okay.
it final, as opposed to you approving this one final, because
Is there anyone in the audience that wants to speak to this particular application? No? Okay. So what's the pleasure of the board?
I move that the Middlebury Development Review Board, having reviewed the application submitted and having heard and duly considered the testimony presented at the public hearing of August 28, 2017, approve this request for lot subdivision of parcel 8-160 located on Foot Street with a condition that final modifications to the final plan will be made and approved by the DRB chair.
You have a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, all set.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking so courteously. Appreciate it.
Don't forget.
I'm gonna get rid of that plat. These are still set.
Okay, this next app is an application by Tractor Supply and Rollison Properties for a conceptual conditional use review to construct an approximately 19,100 square foot retail store. The property is located on Foot Street, parcel 08160, and is located in the PHD zoning district. I guess I better give you I affirm that the evidence and information I am giving this proceeding is true and accurate to the best of my knowledge and belief.
I do.
Thank you. Okay.
Good evening. I'm Brent Rakowski. I'm with Otter Creek Engineering. I'm here with Frank Alexander with Pyromax Properties. And this being our first meeting before the board, we've actually met before the Design Advisory Committee earlier this month. And we're here to talk about Tractor Supply's proposed development on what would be Lot 1, which you recently just saw before you from the Wilson property subdivision. And I guess what I would like to do is possibly turn it over to Frank to just give you a little bit of background behind Tractor Supply and why they've decided on this site and are coming to Middlebury.
Oh, boy. Go ahead.
Hey, thanks for having me again. I'm Frank Alexander. I'm with a company out of North Carolina called Pyromax Properties. I don't work for Tractor Supply. We're an independent developer. But I've been building Tractor Supply stores for about 12 years. Done 5 in Vermont. Won't give you the whole track record, a whole bunch in New Hampshire, Massachusetts, et cetera. We're sort of an outsource, one of several groups that helps them handle their real estate. They've had their own Middlebury for some time. It's a great market, and it's kind of a hole in the donut from their other store locations. Is everybody familiar with Tractor Supply before I give you a big commercial or anything? I mean, it's, a farm supply, rural lifestyle store. We started really probably about a year ago working with Duncan, and then met Jen and started working in kind of a slower, steady process to figure out this site and what would be the best way to position them on it. It's a location that seems to fit, from my perspective, both the town's I guess, planning needs and locationally, and fits within the neighborhood. Tractor's not a high-volume traffic generator. I like to point that out. They're kind of unique for their size. They have probably the lowest traffic count of any 19, 20,000 foot store you'll ever find. I joke, if you see more than about 25 cars in a Tractor Supply parking lot, they must be filming a movie there or doing something, because the nature of their business is their customers come to see them on average, about every 6 weeks, spend a little money when they're there. It's a pretty good ticket item when they come, and then they don't come back again. You don't drive down the road and go, oh, Tractor Supply, I need to rush in there. It's not like a McDonald's or a Walgreens. And therefore, it's a pretty low impact fit for any community it goes into, has been our experience. I can go on and on and on because I love to hear myself talk, but if Brett wants to get into the technicality of it, and I'd like to let him talk about it, and then if any questions about operationally on Tractor or about our company, happy to answer them.
Yeah, that'd be fine. Thank you.
So, as we touched upon earlier, but I'll restate this, is this development is looking to have both a municipal water and sewer connection to the town. The water connection will be to an existing 6-inch cast iron water line that runs along the east side of Foot Street, and that's just going to be a direct crossing of Foot Street and then a tap onto the existing water line. Pretty straightforward. And then the sewer line will be a gravity line running from the proposed Tractor Supply building down to the south end to a point where it's immediately across the street from an existing sewer manhole that is on the access drive to G-Stone Commercial Division properties. In terms of water and sewer usage, it's a retail store. The design flows from an engineering perspective are relatively low. You're generally just considering the number of employees and a small factor in there for folks that are visiting. In terms of overall grading of the site, the topography, that the site is sloped generally from north to south, and in order to accommodate for stormwater treatment requirements, there will be a stone diaphragm, they call it, along the southernmost end of the parking lot. And, excuse me, I can stand up and show you. Right along here, and that generally is just a 2-foot wide gravel trench, if you will. Stormwater just runs, sheet flows across the site. A lot of the larger particulate get picked up in the diaphragm, and then it will go across a gradually sloped grassed area before it reaches a forebay area for additional treatment, and then into a gravel wetland. And then from the gravel wetland here, pipe, and then off-site to adjacent, to recharge adjacent wetlands. In terms of access, we talked about the right-of-way. There's a proposed right-of-way that will be to the north of the property, so that is generally going to be used just for sporadically for once a week, potentially for deliveries. Access into the site is access to the site is just to the south. What else can I say? Parking, right, I believe we have 76 spaces that are there. The requirement is, well, we have 76 spaces that are shown on this plan currently. And I'd be happy to answer any other questions that you have.
So the 105 to 76, that's a process of staff, that's working with our staff, is that correct? That the count cert 105 and everybody agrees operationally, it's 76 is the appropriate number?
There is space on this plan for, I think, additional parking if
Yeah,
something happens.
working with Jen when we first came in, I faced this a lot. Again, going back to my earlier comments, that Tractor is kind of unique in that they don't put a lot of cars in parking lots. Generally, people don't want a bunch of impervious surface that's not being used. 70, 75 spaces, right in that range, is kind of the sweet spot operationally for Tractor, although they only use about a third of those. In working with Jen, she said there was I think it's a green space waiver is the correct terminology. So what we've done is we have provided space to, let me rewind the tape. About 105, 106, I forget my math without looking, that's really what we need per code if we were to max it out. But with the green space waiver, we're setting aside area to put another, whatever it is, 36 or whatever spaces for future use should the need arise. Let's say Tractor 10 years from now packs their tent and leaves, and that turns into a Staples or whatever, and it needs much more traffic generation. There is an allocation of land area there to handle additional parking in the future if it was needed. We don't need it, but we're setting aside space to allow for it, so it's kind of a win-win.
What would the surface be?
For the future parking?
Yeah.
That's just grass. That's just grass, setting it aside for in the future. But it's going to be, I presume it would be, I would want it to be designated as such on the plan, so there's no question about it if 10 years from now someone comes in and wants to do something that's clear as to what they can and can't do there.
You would want to have grass surface designated on the plan?
For the, well, I mean, that's what we're planning to put there. I'm more saying I'd like to make sure it's crystal clear that that is a reserved area for future parking. Okay,
Gotcha.
so, somebody didn't go out there and, try to want to come in here and make an application to build a shed there or something. It's clear that it's to be held back for the future.
Now, the conceptual design that we have here of the building, this is pretty much in tune with most of the other.
Yes and no. What the process has been, Tractor has, I know sometimes when you say prototype, that's a bad word, but Tractor has a branded look for their buildings. And when you come to Vermont, you get to see a lot, because a lot of their older stores up here are the ugly white box, as I call it, and I built them. They used to have a very boxy, white, stark-looking building. I think the only one in the state now that is really their new brand look is probably Morrisville, which went more with a kind of a large gabled entranceway vestibule, went to earth tones. System-wide, they've gotten away from that stark look to make the buildings look a little more earth tony and appealing. However, when we were meeting with the DAC, which is an interesting process, it was, I met with boards, but that was a really kind of a cool process to get give and take feedback. There was desire on the part of the DAC to downsize the, I'm not an architect, so I'll use the wrong terms, but if you're on Route 7, you're looking at the building, they thought what the prototypical look was too tall, too overwhelming looking. They didn't like that raised vestibule up over the top. It kind of sticks up high. So what you're looking at there is kind of a custom design. We had our architect with us at DAC, and taking the feedback from the members of DAC, they wanted us to drop it down, have a steady roof line, pitched roof. Basically what you're seeing there now, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth because I haven't gone back to them yet to see what they like and don't like about that. But that kind of looks like a Tractor Supply, but it's also kind of unique in terms of how that roof line is treated. And so,
That's what the DAC looked at.
yeah, that's a cut sheet from a prototypical, let me jump up.
Okay.
See what, this thing here,
Sorry, Frank, I gotta zoom in for you.
this area, there's your front door, excuse me, if folks can see. So this raised area here sticks up to about, I think it's a little over 30 feet, this raised area, and in profile from the side, I guess you can see it here.
Yes.
They thought that kind of, I was getting comments like, it looks like an old false front Wild West building, type of thing. It looks tacked on. Okay. So what they suggested we do, if we could accomplish it, would be to raise this part of the roof over the building a little bit, lower this part down to make it more of a seamless look, and it's a little less overwhelming looking by their definition from the highway corridor. And so what you see is what was the result of that. Still kind of looks like a tractor, but it's a little lower profile, a little more subdued. We also added some additional awnings, decorative awnings, and faux shutters on it, just trying to make it a little more visually interesting. And I gotta set the date, Jim, but we're coming back, I guess, in September I'm coming back up in September for a second meeting with DAC to hash that out the rest of the way.
Can we get into lighting? Can you ask about lighting now?
Sure, yeah.
I see you have your different types of lights. So. I assume there'll be normal cutoffs.
Yeah, a few years ago, Tractor went all LED for energy efficiency. They are full cutoff fixtures, dark sky compliant, both the lights on the building walls and the pole lights in the parking lot. They've even now, this isn't what we're here to talk about, but they've even gone LED inside the building for energy efficiency as well. So it's a 100% LED building.
How many poles are you going to have in the parking lot?
I think we're showing, Jen, aren't we showing 6, if my memory serves?
Yeah, it says in the memo. Let's see here. 6 pole lights in the parking lot, and then I got 10 wall packs around 3
Get my
sides
email?
of the building. You might want to address
And this is on my part. We're also working with Cross Engineers out of St. Albans, who has done other tractors for us as well, kind of a team effort with Otter Creek. I missed this. They forgot to put some building lights, wall pack lights on the Foot Street side of the building. And for security purposes, Tractor wants some lights on all four sides, just, they shine down on the ground, like right at the footprint of the building. And so we will correct that on the next submittal. But I just wanted to, I apologize, wanted to throw that out that I missed that.
I'm sorry, are there more than the 3 that are shown on this elevation?
Well, on the elevation, it shows them, but they didn't get onto the plan that was submitted.
But it is those 3
Yes,
and
it's
those
those
3.
three, and on the side.
You were talking about the wall packs, right?
Yeah, the wall packs. So on the Foot
Same
Street
thing,
side,
down
yeah,
that side.
they'd be on that side.
But they're on the elevation.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Architect did the elevation, engineer did the plan, and
I was gonna
left
make
hand,
that
right
joke
hand.
too, that
Yeah.
you look at the elevation more than I did.
Do you have any idea what the square footage of the skylights will be? Because I'm interested in what type of light pollution would be created through those.
I don't, and as a matter of fact, tomorrow morning, our architect is having a conference call with a consultant up here on, every state has a little different interpretation of the skylighting or natural lighting rules. I don't know the answer to that. I know I'm building one right now in Sarasota, Florida, that's got 32 skylights in it, but that's what they required down there. I don't know what's required up here in terms of code coverage. We generally just follow what the code requires. If your concern is going the opposite way, at night you worried about lights coming up through the sky, I don't know how to
I
answer
mean, in
that.
Sarasota,
Yeah,
that wouldn't
yeah,
be an issue
yeah.
because it's lit up like crazy, but
Yeah.
down at the end of Foot Street, not so much.
My personal preference, I'm all about natural lighting, but I mean, skylights in a roof in a state that's got snow on the roof a lot of times of the year, I'm a southern boy, it doesn't always quite make sense to me. But we have to do what the code requires. And so, I can get you an answer to that as to what it would be, but I don't know.
That's all right.
Yeah,
If that's,
Yeah.
if you're putting in only the amount that the code requires and no more, there's not really an argument
Right.
I can make about it.
Right.
But the prototype building is a flat roof building.
Yes, slope from, they're moving yes and no.
Minimally
They're
sloped.
moving more and more to a gabled roof because for aesthetics, for shedding snow when we're up north. And also, I mean, they're in business to make money. It allows them to, the gable roof gives them a little bit higher racking height in the back of the storage room so they can put a little more merchandise on site, not have to have so many deliveries come in quite as often. I like the gable look. We're starting to move to that more and more.
Now, the outside display area, that's going to be on the west side, so you
The
wouldn't.
side away from Foot Street,
Yeah,
yes.
so you would not see that.
Yes. If you're facing the building, it'd be to the left of the building.
Okay.
Right. Okay. And that's, it's a concrete slab. It's as I describe it, it's where they put the stuff that's too big to fit inside the store, basically. Just all-weather material, cattle feeders, fencing sections, outdoor type materials like that.
I'm just visualizing the store on Shelburne Road.
Yes.
And on the south side of that, you have a display area, tractors, lawn tractors, and other types of.
There are 3 outdoor display areas at every Tractor Supply.
Okay.
And the Shelburne store, by the way, was a unique experiment, that kind of a custom deal, which I think even Shelburne in hindsight, I'm not sure they're totally happy with themselves after making us do it. But I got to tell the story. Put all these windows in it. A week after we put these windows in it, the phone rang, and it was the town planner in Shelburne calling up saying, real sheepishly, going, Frank, we've had people driving up and down Route 7 saying it's too bright with all those windows. Could you put shutters in those windows to cover them up? And I just felt about hung up the phone. We wound up putting dark tinting inside the windows to knock it down, but it was something that was a good idea, but didn't work out. So back to this. So you've got, maybe if I get on this side.
No, I think you need to be.
I keep switching plans on you.
I know I'm getting vertigo here, Jim.
I'm sorry, man. It's like
So
an
you-
audiovisual maven. Hang on, I'm just gonna move that up.
Okay.
All right, and go.
Got it. All right, there's 3 outdoor display areas at Tractor Supply, the largest of which is the fenced outdoor display, which we just talked about. It's a slab next to the building, fence around it, and this is where, for security reasons, and this is where they keep fencing pipe rail fences, cattle feeders, outdoor stuff that fits behind the gate. on the front sidewalk is 25 feet deep from the pavement, the parking edge to the front of the building, big sidewalk. There's 5 feet of that reserved for a safe pedestrian walk path per code. And then we will designate these little areas here. We want these designated. These are sidewalk display areas, like every farm store, where you have kind of a rotating stock of seasonal merchandise out here, maybe some wheelbarrows, some, you mentioned like log splitters, riding mowers, whatnot. They'll change that around. And then on the front edge of the parking lot, there's an area this is their trailer display area. When I say trailers, they sell a lot of the little flat black pull behind your pickup truck trailers. Typically, like you see lawn maintenance guys hauling a lawnmower on or something. And what they do is they will line these up here. They have a security chain on them, but that's a sales area where if you want to buy one, you can come up there and walk up and down the road, look at the sizes, the model you want. I'll take this one, then you back your car up, hook it up, and pay the man, and away you go. So these are the 3 areas of outdoor display that will be kind of constantly in use. And we want them designated clearly on the plan. Again, getting back to tractor grinds on us because they don't want 10 years from now somebody coming back saying, well, you aren't supposed to put stuff here, not supposed to put stuff there. They want it clearly designated. And that way, if they exceed their area, because sometimes a manager wants his Christmas bonus, he might, start putting a little too much stuff out here, and I get a nasty call from Jen, and we have to tell them to back their stuff off. It happens. But I want to make sure it's clearly defined so that we know where they can and can't display outdoor merchandise. And other than that, just while I'm up here, parking, stormwater, landscaping, as we discussed. Rear delivery, the trucks let's talk about that while I'm here. The truck probably will actually come in off this customer entrance here. When I say truck, the 18-wheeler. Once they're stocked up and open, tractor on average gets 1 tractor trailer truck a week. This isn't a supermarket that gets 5 a day. You typically get about 1 a week. Maybe in fall or spring, busy season, they might get a couple a week, maybe right at Christmas time. But they don't get a lot of big heavy-duty truck deliveries. They get a lot of their stuff during the week from UPS, of all people. Brings them spot loads of what they need. Truck will come in here, drive back here, back up. The delivery door is actually down here in the corner. That is a ramp. They don't use dock-high loading docks anymore. That's a freestanding metal ramp that the truck will back up to, and the forklift scoots up and down this ramp and into the store to load. And then the truck will pull out, and this is when it'll hit that back driveway and exit out that way and onto Foot Street and be on its way. This area behind it right here, we're not putting heating units on the roof of the building. We're putting them on the ground behind the building in a screened enclosure, so you have that cleaner roof line. You're not seeing a bunch of junk on the roof as you're driving by, as shown in the elevation, and that's enclosed behind the building as well.
Could you point to that area again, please?
It's kind of hard to see, but it's right.
Got it.
This big thing here. There'll be about 4 HVAC units sitting there. Actually, to get them out of the snow, they'll be up on stands a little bit, but there'll be a screened enclosure around them, and then the ducts go into the back of the building right directly from them, and then are ducked through the building. Back in the day, we used to always put them on the roof, but this gives it a little bit of a cleaner look.
Now, will there always be something in those display areas?
Yes.
Year-round?
Yes.
So, okay.
Yes. It varies, with the season as to what it
Right.
might be, but they always use that. And that's a big part, like any farm store. That's a big part of
Yeah.
their operational model.
I was just wondering, here in the north, when we have snow, whatever weather, you move everything inside or.
They may move some things inside, in and out, but they'll probably be, I know in the side yard, I've been to them when there's 2 feet of snow sitting in the side yard, and they're not selling a lot of stuff out of the side yard because it's full of snow.
Yeah.
What do you do? So
Okay.
they shovel it out. I'm rambling on, I love to hear myself talk, hours to anticipate a question. They're typically open from 8 to 8, sometimes 8 to 9 in the season, Monday through Saturday, 10 to 6 on Sunday, so it is a 7-day-a-week business. Lighting we were talking about, they generally have they like to leave the wall-packed security lights on overnight that are shining down just to watch the footprint around the building for security reasons. The pole lights go off an hour after they close for business. The signage goes off an hour after they close for business. And then if you're in the winter, when it's dark in the morning, it'll come on usually about an hour before they open in the morning. Summertime, that's probably not a factor.
Sorry, what did you say were the hours?
Hours are 8 to 8, Monday through Saturday, sometimes 8 to 9, depending on what's, how busy the season is, and then 10 to 6 on Sundays. And some stores vary a little bit depending on market, but that's generally how they operate. Typically employ, stores vary, but I usually say it's probably not more than 20 people, anywhere from like maybe 12 to 15 to 20 people. There won't be that many on the floor at any one time. They'll have shifts, obviously. They will bring, the store manager is somebody who, I don't know who it is, the store manager is someone who is probably currently an assistant manager in Rutland or something like that and is up for promotion, but everybody else they tend to hire locally. One thing Tractor really, I'm a commercial here, they really pride themselves on their employee training. In fact, they call them team members. They have one of the lowest turnover rates of any retailer in America, and they make sure they have people on staff that, like in this area in particular, they'll have people that own and ride horses that are on there. So if you come in and have horse questions, you're not talking to someone that's never been on a horse in their life, like me. You're talking to people that know what they're doing. They sell some welding equipment. So good, again, people, their customers tend to do welding out on their property. They'll have somebody there that's an experienced welder on staff. They put a lot of emphasis on the quality and training of their employees.
Questions?
Can we talk about the landscaping?
Sure.
Somewhere in here, I think I read that you wanted to clear out the brush line along Foot Street, but leave the large trees.
Yes.
What would be the point of that?
For better visibility to the store. It's a pretty impenetrable hedge right now. You can't see it at all from Foot Street. They are a retailer and they need to be seen.
Will they have a landscaping service that will help keep the brush down? Because around here, it grows back very quickly.
They do hire, each store hires, sometimes, depending on how the store's set up, sometimes they'll use some of their own people because they do sell the equipment. But typically, in my experience, they'll hire a local vendor to be a grounds maintenance group and keep it down. We also, we will own the store, they won't. They're our tenant. And so as the landlord also, we periodically visit the properties and make sure they look right. And some store managers do better jobs than others. I'd be kidding you if I didn't. So I had to fuss at a manager last week who was letting the grass get a little wild and woolly at a store in another state. Got it taken care of. And again, I don't know exactly what this looks like yet. It's kind of a discussion. Matter of fact, there was a guy on the DAC who I think is an arborist or something. We got to talking about this, but it might even improve the health of the real trees that are in there because some of the vines and underbrush in there are starting to choke out what's along the road. I'm happy to leave a lot of it there, but I would like to clear out some of it. It's pretty grubby in there. I'd like to clear out some of the stuff that's in there so they could open up some sight lines to the store and make it look a little more tidy because it's a pretty impenetrable hedge right now. We will open up, obviously, where the driveways are and the signage and everything. We'll have to clear that out completely, to have those access points.
What about replacing trees that die?
Trees that we would plant that die?
No, trees that you hope will continue on after you've cleared the brush, but then they die.
Well, I guess that's what you require, whatever you guys happen to require of us. We, generally, when you do a development, or my experience has been that, we have to guarantee or bond or whatever the local procedure is, any new plantings we do. When we clear out brush or limb up trees, we're generally not held accountable for them because that's getting pretty subjective. I don't know how old those trees are. I mean, we want the property to look good, but I'm open to discussion. I guess it's a conversation at this point as to what you guys would like to see.
You're not gonna beat them up about those Rosa rugosa? I'm relying on you, Ann.
You've already beat me up.
I think they're fine. I would point out, though, that there are certain types of Rosa rugosa that do better in Vermont than other types, even though they are rated for all rated for the same zone. So if you're set on having roses, which seems very weird to me in a parking lot.
Let me, I'm going to pick on your industry, Brent. I think we hire really talented engineers, and they know a lot about stormwater and piping and thicknesses of parking lots. They don't know a lot about landscaping unless they have a specialist on staff. So correct me if I'm wrong.
I would say that's a fair assessment.
Yeah, I'm not looking to put a botanical garden out here, but at the same time, I welcome feedback. Jen and I had the same conversation. We were on for about half an hour last week about this. I welcome conversation. I mean, you guys know what grows up here. I don't. And if there's some suggestions you have, and you mentioned there was a member of the DAC who's also in tune to this.
Yeah, I
And
brought it
I-
up because I just, like, with the DAC's permission, I'd like to work with Frank
Yeah.
and maybe Lily, who's on the DAC now,
You want to show him the book too? I mean,
to suggest some perennials that could go in there, and we can use books.
yeah.
But we can also use our knowledge of those things. I mean, if you guys are okay with that. I don't want to just jump ahead without these guys.
Short answer, and I'm very open to suggestion on this. And again, I love telling the stories. The store we did in Derby, Vermont, the guy that we bought the land from was a car dealer, and his office manager actually used to be in the landscaping business. And he looked at our landscaping plan, and he just said, "Are you nuts?" Because it's on this kind of windswept, a lot of wind. He said, "This stuff's not going to make it." And so with his help, same thing I'm talking about here, it didn't cost me any more money. It's just it was smart planning, and we changed around some of the species, and it's done quite well. I'd much rather have stuff that you guys, your town, not mine, that you guys know does well up here and looks good.
Well, you might also, I don't know about the white pines, but they grow well, but they also fall over all the time.
Okay,
And bits break off, so that might be something
okay,
to look into with whoever you discuss this with.
okay, thank you. Can you help me with this too?
You betcha.
All right.
Flowers I can do. Storm water systems I can't, so.
Okay. Any further questions? Any comments from the audience?
Yeah, I
Could-
would say so.
could-
Comments and maybe a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Based on your.
Excuse me, could you identify yourself,
Oh,
please,
sure.
for the record?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm Scott Jacobs. This is my wife Jennifer. We own and operate the Middlebury Ag Waste
Yes.
Store.
Okay, Scott.
It's been locally owned for over 17 years.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, a couple questions and comments. First of all, just based on the earlier hearing, I want to make sure that I'm, not getting outside the bounds by asking my questions directly of people maybe that might be able to answer them. I should address everything.
Yeah, everything to the board.
That
and
just to keep the heat off you and the heat off them, like it's
Sure.
just,
just,
yeah.
yeah, we're the buffer.
Yes. So I could ask you a question and you could ask them for the answer.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah. I'm listening.
The sheriff's here now, so he can referee.
message somewhere, you're right in between. The first comment, this will be Middlebury's first corporate chain box store. It seems like a big decision. And I'm kind of surprised that there's nobody else here that wants to bring it up or talk about it. This will be the first thing that people see when they enter Middlebury from the south. So I guess my first question is, what information has already been given out to the public other than the interview that Mr. Alexander did with the Addison Independent? So are people even aware of the scope of this project, or does it even matter? I guess on that same subject, I would say, has there been any study, either an economic impact study, or have you considered asking for one, or is there any consideration just for how a business like this might impact a number of other local businesses, especially the number of them that are locally owned? Yes, and some of them are located quite close by. I got my information about this project from that article in the paper. It was a good interview, provided some information. I guess the first question I had is, would this be considered like a typical Tractor Supply store? Because that site plan there looks almost identical to the one that's on Shelburne Road, kind of in the number of spaces, layout, everything else. The article in the paper made it sound like they were going to customize this to meet Middlebury's special adversity to having, kind of corporate chain storefront type appearances of things. But it doesn't seem like it's all that much different. Secondly, their website says their typical Tractor Supply store is 15,500 square feet. So, you know, I guess these plans are for 19,000. I don't know what the square footage is of the Shelburne
I
location.
can answer that one. That's the sales area. That's the sales area in a Tractor Supply. The 19 includes the storage area, the manager's office, et cetera.
The physical building itself.
Yeah, the physical building, but
Okay.
the sales area is 15. That's what they're referring to.
That's fine, I just wondered
Yeah.
if this was
Yeah.
gonna be bigger than,
No, no.
than the typical one. But I guess the question really gets back to my first statement, and, you know, there used to be at least it seemed like there used to be a real consideration for impact on local businesses. I think that had come up in the past, a big hubbub about Staples possibly coming and everything else. So I just wondered, does that enter into the conversation here? Or is it even appropriate for me to ask if that's relevant?
Perfectly appropriate, yeah. Anything else you want to add to the list of questions?
Well, yeah, particularly, you know, just because Mr. Alexander brought up Agway in that article, you know, and I thought for the public record, I just want to clarify a few things. You said there would be some overlap of product, and I agree with that. The only thing I wouldn't, and you said that we have branched out into the green space, you know, meaning plants and nursery products and things like that, and Tractor Supply doesn't do. But the only thing I guess I would want to clarify is that his expression of some overlap, other than our nursery and greenhouse stuff, and this goes not just for me, but for several other businesses in the area, it would be an almost complete overlap of products that are offered. I mean, they mentioned Agway maybe because we're one of the more well-known places in the area, or because it used to be, you know, a company-owned location, even though it's 17 years since I've owned it. But I find it kind of funny that no one's even asked the question. Looking at it directly right across the street is Paris Pharmacy. That's a farm store too. Right next door to that is Taylor Rental. They sell power equipment. They have a big display of lawnmower blades and belts, and exactly what you'd see if you walk through the Shelburne Tractor Supply location. So, try not to get too worked up here, but I feel like I have more businesses to speak on behalf of than myself, and I can't enter anything into the record on their behalf, but common sense would say that they would probably at least agree with some of my questions. Less than a half mile down the road is Martin's True Value Hardware. You pile all these things together, and a lot of these are locally owned, family-owned businesses. There's a lot of product overlap. You have to ask yourself, why does Middlebury need this? Is that part of the process in making the decision?
It's your choice as the chair. Do you want to talk about those questions, then do a second round to see if anything else comes up? That's always kind of a nice way to do it.
Yeah, I have a few others, but they're just minor, so it's.
Oh, I totally cut you off and I didn't mean to.
No.
Yeah.
I like your way, because.
Because then you have time to think about the responses a little bit. Does that work for you as chair? Putting you totally on the spot here, Rick.
Yes, you are. What's the board's?
So I wrote down all the questions, and I can ask these back to you to handle. And then I was thinking after you address all the questions, we could just go back to the crowd and see if anybody else has a second round of questions from the crowd, you know, responses or something before we shut the hearing down. Does that sound civil?
Sure.
Okay.
It would be all right if I just asked one more question. How many of you have actually been, everyone's familiar with the Tractor Supply. You know, we can go online and look up anything, but how many of us have actually gone and walked through a Tractor Supply store, whether as a customer or just to look around to get an
Well, that's an
idea
easy
of
one. You can do that.
what this is about?
Right.
Because the,
You never been in one?
I agree.
I figured we'd have two hands raised right there. But, you know, everything that was presented sounds like a really good, you know, wholesome commercial for a good down-home company. But, you know, things aren't always, you know, they're kind of painting it a little bit on the rosy end of the side and sort of glossing over a little bit of the overlap of products and impact on other businesses and all that side. And I just wondered at some point, I mean, obviously this applies to me, so it's important to me, but at some point, you know, we'll just enter the bigger question about Middlebury's first, you know, corporate chain box store. And particularly, do we need it? And is it a good idea to bring one in that they could have such an impact on so many other small locally owned businesses. Right across the street from us is Sears. They sell power equipment. You know, there's 2 hardware stores, one big hardware stores, one of which Martin's is locally owned. You know, I mentioned Paris, then I mentioned Taylor Rental right next to them. And if you walk through a Tractor Supply store, they sell a lot of stuff that, believe me, they have a very big overlap of what I sell, but they also sell a lot of stuff that I don't sell and don't have anything to do with. But a huge amount of that is automotive. You know, we've got at least three locally owned, you know, automotive stores, auto parts stores in town. So I think there's a lot bigger picture here, you know, than just the lights and the trees and the parking spaces and all that kind of stuff. You know, both just on the plan of the box store itself and, you know, and does it fill a need, or does it, I would think a good argument for the first one of these from Middlebury is, does it fill a need, does it fill a niche? You know, is there something that's missing that's causing us to have to drive to, I remember earlier talk was, we have to drive to Rutland to buy socks or, you know, or something like that. But it'll have an impact, you know, no question about it. And, you know, we've experienced some pretty good growth over the years, and we have a lot of customers that are pretty good to us, and this isn't the end of the world for us, but when you look collectively at all these other, us and all these other businesses, you know, the growth in this market is slowing down. You know, it's gotten a little saturated as it is. We grew by leaps and bounds, but even particularly for the last couple of years, when no one had any idea about Tractor Supply, you know, things had already started to flatten out a little bit. You know, we employ 25 full and part-time people. You know, I see the number of hours that I'm shocked at how late their stores are open. The one in Shelburne is open 8 to 9, 6 days a week, and they're open 8 to 7 on Sundays. That's a lot of hours for a store to be open. The article in the paper says that they plan to employ 12 full and part-time employees. That's very few people to keep a store open that number of hours. So, I mean, let's not kid ourselves. This is a box store under a box store operating format. It's not going to be teaming with employees. You know, it can't be. You know, not with being open that late. And if you guys go take a field trip all together and just drop in on one, you'll see there's just a handful of people there, and usually I've never seen more than one register open. Now, it's none of my business to criticize that. I'm just, you know, addressing the overall point. If sales happen to, I mean, if it just gets watered down just a little bit, maybe everybody survives, but it would be hard for all these other, us and all these other stores to maintain employment at that kind of a high level. You know, if any of these businesses are forced to shed a few employees here and there, pretty soon that number is going to far outweigh the 12 or so employees that might be added to the market, you know, by this store coming in. So, you know, I don't know if it's a matter of them just this being approved because they seem to have all the I's dotted and the T's crossed and everything, but I feel like this is a bigger decision than that.
Okay. Thank you, Scott.
So I did jot these things down as we go along if you want me to kind of revise it. But I mean, you know, the comments really kind of fall into a few basic categories. Like one, like the concept of the corporate big box and its impact on local businesses. I can think of a couple positive things to say about possible impacts on local businesses to balance it out if that helps, but that just might not even help you.
I'm all ears if you.
Yeah, okay. I mean, do you want to start with that and then work our way into the design and how it's different than Shelburne? Or I'm sure Frank has some responses. Maybe you guys. I am playing chair right now, and it's a very unfamiliar territory for me.
Yeah, this is.
I'm not trying to step on your toes at all.
I don't, you know.
I didn't mean to address just.
Welcome your help.
No, it's fine. People always know I'm a good listener. I got big eyeballs. Yeah. So you know, I have noticed the Economic Health Task Force has been working on different things, and we just redid the local economy section of the town plan. And I did look at a lot of data of, you know, like our market data for what we can use in this town, and it's amazing. Like the market data kind of shows that there is a spot in the local economy for things in that whole garden supply store, category, and it surprised me to see that data, because I would think that we were maxed out in that regard, but it looks like there's additional opportunity there.
Well, they don't offer anything different than what's offered at 5 or 6 other stores right in the area.
Right.
90% of what that store has can be found within 3/4 of a mile of the location of the subdivision, with what's looking at them right across the street of Paris and Taylor Rental and in Martin's Hardware and the auto parts store right down there.
Sure. I mean, I'm not really trying to open up like a debate or anything, it's just that's what the data showed me, and I was surprised to see that, and I was thinking, geez, how could we fit in more? And I don't know, like, I assume Tractor Supply has run the figures too, and I'm sure they're seeing that they can turn a profit without driving everybody else out. It's interesting, people have told me too that since Ames went out, that there have been fewer people in town shopping from other areas. And it was actually just data that it was a couple of the car dealerships noticed that their sales went down when Ames went out because people weren't coming in to shop in Middlebury. So there's always the possibility maybe that people would come in to shop at Tractor Supply, that would be their destination, and they could stop at other places at the same time. These are two positive things I hold out hope for myself.
And they're good, happy thoughts.
Uh-huh.
But, it's optimistic, but I'd say rather than looking at the data, why don't you talk to some of the businesses that I talked to here? Look at the mix of products.
Uh-huh.
Ask yourself, they do what they do, but that doesn't mean that we need it. It doesn't mean you should turn it down because we don't need it necessarily, I guess.
Again, just throwing those things out, not to debate. You're probably completely right. I'm not a business owner myself, but
But I just wondered at what point all these things get taken into consideration, because this is bigger than just whether or not it might be a pain in the neck to me on pricing on bird food and dog food or something. Our business is diverse enough that, we've learned to do that to survive.
Okay.
But this is a big decision on a whole bigger level.
let me go back to the board on this now.
Yeah. Can we maybe get a response from Frank if he wants to, and then can we talk about this in deliberative session?
Yeah, sure. I was just thinking, I
Yeah.
just didn't know if any board members really wanted to speak to it.
I didn't hear anybody jump in.
I don't
right
see
on,
anybody
so
pulling up close to the table.
I mean,
Frank, you and I talked a little bit about your experience with Agways and other places.
I respect what you're saying. I appreciate your passion. I'm a small businessman too.
Right.
And, I've heard these discussions and concerns before. It's very hard for me it's a very subjective argument, and it's very hard for me to counter it. I mean, it's your town, and there's kind of left brain, right brain. There's the left brain, what meets code, what fits your zoning, black and white. Then right brain, what do you guys want in your community? And if you don't want Tractor Supply in your community, and that's the decision of the board, I respect that. And tell me now before I spend more time on it. But the only thing I'll add to this is, yes, there will be competition among overlapping businesses around here. And you probably know the answer to this better than I do, because I imagine you talked to the other owners, so I may be off base, but I just know, like, we put a Tractor Supply about 7 years ago in Montpelier. At that time, there was an Agway 5 minutes away. Agway's still there. Agway's still there. Put one in Walpole, 3 minutes away from an Agway. Agway's still there. Aubuchon Hardware is in just about every town we go into. There's a hardware store, an auto supply store, something competitive wherever Tractor Supply goes. It's rare they're the first people to go into a market. Do they impact businesses? I'm sure they do. Do businesses continue to operate and survive? Yes, they do, because of what I see with my own eyes. I'm a reverse carpetbagger. I'm from North Carolina coming up here to your state, but I've been doing this, the very first store I ever built for Tractor Supply was the one in Rutland, which, by the way, is next door to La Valley Building Supply, which was very nervous about having them come in because Home Depot had come in just 2 years earlier, and they said, gosh, we just got over Home Depot, now here you guys come. Turns out La Valley's business went up after Tractor Supply came in next to them. And that's not a great parallel, because that's a building supply business. That's not what you guys are doing. But to Jen's point, or the thing she noted, they will bring in, there's pluses and minuses. They will perhaps bring in some customers that weren't coming to Middlebury for other reasons, that may eat lunch here, that may shop and do other services here. Maybe they come to Tractor Supply and leave. I don't know. There's not much more I can say about that other than the flavor of, what it may be. The big box argument, I'll poke back just a little bit in the fact that, there's multiple supermarkets in town. There's multiple big box, well, it stands alone, kind of gets a cachet about it. But it's a national retailer, and there's plenty of other national retailers in this town selling drugs, groceries, auto parts. You know, it's, yeah. They will hire local people, they will pay local taxes, they will be part of the local community. Some of the profits will go to Tennessee because that's where they're headquartered. But I think they will be a good part of the community as well. I don't know what else to say about the competitive aspect other than that.
Scott?
Just, and I respect those points as well. You know, I don't mean to make this a point counterpoint or anything, but I just want to make sure that we all have all the information out there and that nothing is being glossed over. I don't have the right to just gloss over them as a big box store and they're evil and they shouldn't come or something like that. I don't mean any of those things. And you know, but there is a difference. And you know, sure, there are national retailers that are here in town. The grocery store thing is a good example, but this would be like asking, all right, we already have 2 grocery stores. Should we, you know, we could fit a small BJ's or Sam's Club or Costco on that space. You know, and is that what we want to do? Because this is more on the lines of that. But also, some of those examples, like in Montpelier, I know that firsthand. It's one of my best friends that owns a Montpelier Agway store. He's still there. He's still doing all right, but his growth is stalled, and you know, he doesn't employ quite as many people as he did. Maybe that's the new reality of business in town here. But you know, this isn't a town with just a hardware store, and a farm store, and a building supply store. There's already multiple ones of those, you know, and so many of them are locally owned. So again, it just gets back to the question of, you know, do we need this?
And I think that's a good question. So I think that makes sense to wrap it up there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do that, and, shall we? Question?
Well, we got a deliberative session.
Do we have a second on that?
We need to close this hearing first. Do we make a motion to close the hearing first?
I don't think you closed the hearing.
Yeah, you would close it before you go into deliberative session.
Okay.
Not too much to deliberate about since we're not reaching a decision tonight. But
Right.
I think it would be helpful in case you have any feedback you'd like me to share for improvement of the plans or anything like that.
Okay. So
I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
any discussion on that motion? Closed. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So,
No, one abstention,
one abstention.
because I came in late and I
Yeah.
haven't heard all of this tonight.
Okay. That. So, and then we need a motion for
Whether
the,
we go to deliberative session to discuss this and the previous item.
second, Gary? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstaining.
One abstention. So moved. So we're gonna go into deliberative session. It's, you know, just amongst the board members, and there's no final decision tonight on this proposal, on this application, whatever, you know, but
Okay.
we'll go from there, and then if you'd like to contact Jen in the morning, whatever, then she can.
We leave now? Is that?
Sure.
Okay,
Yes.
all right,
Yeah.
thanks.
Okay,
And
thank
I
you.
want to apologize to the chair for not addressing you, but I couldn't see you.
That's, no, she was doing just fine. I was happy. Yeah, this was, you know. Sort of.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Good night.
You're welcome.
Okay.
So, we just come out of deliberative session, and where we go from here?
I make a motion on PUD's beans.
Okay, yes. The application by William Smith on Bud Beans, what's the board's desire here? We have a motion?
Yeah, this is the recommendation.
I shut my computer.
I did too. Sorry.
I didn't write. I don't think I wrote them.
So, having heard the testimony and duly considered the input, propose that the Development Review Board grant the PUD, the change to the PUD, with the condition that staff is attaching conditions that were discussed.
Second.
Any discussion? You get that, Jen? I think.
Is that what you need? Is that what you need to?
Yeah,
report?
that's fine.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Recusing.
Oh, yeah.
1, 2, 3,
Down to
4.
five.
Okay.
Show of hands.
Show of hands, please.
Aye.
4 in favor? Object? 1? Two
No, I recuse.
recuse and
And also,
abstain.
I'm not recusing, I'm not voting because I wasn't here for the testimony.
So 4, we got 1 objection,
No,
You
amazingly.
still got, you're good.
still got 4 passing it.
Still good.
1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. All in favor? I guess we did that.
Yeah, we did.
Okay, so passes. Do we have to do anything? We don't have to do anything with the Tractor Supply at this time?
No.
Okay.
But with the subdivision, we do, don't we?
You already did that?
No, we already approved that.
Oh,
Yeah, we approved
right,
it in open
Yeah.
right,
meeting.
okay, thank you.
Any other business? A motion to adjourn?
I just have a question for Jen.
Okay.
After the last meeting, meeting that we had, how was it received by the La Fionda fellow on, because he didn't stick around, right? For his street decision?
It was on the Wayward Street to put the,
Yeah, I know.
okay. I'm
So
sorry.
I've got the decision sitting here, it just needs Kevin's signature.
No, but I mean, did
We
he,
either spoke or emailed, I don't remember if it was which way we communicated, but I just kind of explained that it was denied and that it was because of that 5-point variance test. And it just sounded like maybe he wasn't really aware that he had to meet all 5 points,
okay.
so. Yep.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. We're done, Kath. So, thank you.